Hello, this is Mahati. Subject History. Book name Indian Modern History 1867 1867 to 1964 1964. Unit 36 Communalism and the Partition of India. Subtopic 36.0 Objectives. After reading this unit, you will be able to explain the nature of communalism, COMMUNALISM, communalism in the last decade of the British rule. Get an idea of the background to the demand for Pakistan. Trace the political developments leading up to the partition of India. Assess the role played by the Muslim League, League, the British and the Congress in the creation of Pakistan. Subtopic 36.1 Introduction. In Unit 14 of Block 4, you learnt about various forces which led to the emergence emergence and growth of communalism in modern India. You have already become familiar familiar with the major developments related to communalism up to 1940. However, the 1940s represent the most crucial crucial and decisive decisive phase of communalism. It was in this period that the biggest communal demand, the demand for Pakistan, was put forward and popularized by the Muslim League. This period also witnessed the actual coming into being of Pakistan in 1947. This unit attempts to explain the process of the formation of Pakistan and gives you a summary of the major events which led to it. Subunit 36.2 Background to Pakistan. The demand for Pakistan did not arise in a vacuum. Vacuum. It was a product of certain political developments which took place after 1937. The period after 1937 witnessed serious changes in the politics of both the Hindu communal and the Muslim communal forces. In the popularization popularization of the Pakistan demand, the British policy also played a very active role by giving it acknowledgement acknowledgement and credibility credibility. Let us look at their role separately. Subtopic 36.2.1 Transformation Transformation of the Muslim League. The year 1937 was a turning point in the history of Muslim communalism. In the elections held for the provincial provincial Legislative, Legislative, legislative assemblies, 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 provincial legislative assemblies that year. The League won only 109 of the 492 reserved Muslim seats and only 48% of the total Muslim votes. The poor elections results showed the League that is man expand its popular base among different sections of the Muslim population, particularly among the urban lower middle class. A radical socio-economical and political program was ruled out for achieving the purpose, as existing social base of the League was among the landlords and the loyalist loyalist elements. Therefore, the League raised the cry of Islam in danger and threat from impending Hindu Raj. To appeal to save one religion from the threats being forced upon it soon turned into a campaign of hatred against the followers of other religions. According to W.C. Smith, Smith, communal propaganda, propaganda was full of, in quotes, fervor, fervour, fervor, fear, contempt, 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 and bitter hatred. Jinnah, Jinnah, and other League leaders declared the real aim of the Congress was not independence but a Hindu Raj which would enable them to fulfill their basic motive, the domination of Muslims and extermination, extermination of their faith. Once the prospect of a Hindu Raj became a deep-seated fear in the Muslim psyche, psyche, it was easy to drive home the need for a separate homeland where the Muslim could live and practice their faith in freedom. The demand for Pakistan inevitably inevitably flowed from the politics of fear and hatred adopted by the League after 1937. As its Lahore section in March 1940, the League passed the famous Lahore Resolution demanding a sovereign, sovereign state for the Muslims on the ground that Hindus and Muslims were two nations. Subtopic 36.2.2 Extremist phase of Hindu communalism. The Hindu communalists, on the other hand, had fared even worse than their Muslim counterparts in 1937 election. The same choice faced them. They had either to obtain the support of the masses or face extermination. Their predicament, predicament, was aggravated in 1938 when Congress disallowed communists from working within the Congress organization. They needed a new basis and a new program and resorted to appeals to region and whipped up a fear and hatred like the Muslim League had done. Madan Mohan Malaviya's place was now taken by leaders who were willing to take their parties in a fascist fascist direction. Veer Savarkar of the Hindu Mahasabha and M.S. Golwalkar Golvalker Golwalkar of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Golwalkar's book We became the Manifesto, Manifesto, Manifesto of Hindu Communalism. The Muslims were vilified, vilified, and the congressmen were condemned, condemned for or supporting or mod inverterate inverterate enemies. The Muslims were told that they could stay on in India with they cease to be foreigners, that is, become Hindus. Otherwise, they would not be given citizens' right, let alone any privileges or special treatment as minorities. Asserting to that the Hindus were the only nation living in India and that Muslims should either leave or live as a second-class citizens was the Hindu communalist version of the two-section theory and the demand for a separate homeland. The language of Hindu communalists became extremely vicious, vicious by 1946 to 47. As communal riots spread and Congress was unable to stall them or stem the drift towards Pakistan, Hindu communalists expanded their influence by posing as saviors of Hindus. They accused the Congress leaders of eradicating the Hindus by their talk of non-violence and communal unity and exhorted Hindus to retaliate and teach a lesson to the Muslims. Their stance became even more aggressive after partition as the communalized atmosphere provided fertile soil for their growth. The demand was raised that since Pakistan was an Islamic state, India should be declared a Hindu Raj. When they hope of overthrowing the government by creating a state of general disorder by fomenting fomenting riots was not realized, they turned to slander of Congress leaders. Even Gandhiji was not spared of the charge of treason, treason to the Hindu nation because of his alleged softness to Muslims in Pakistan. Cries of death to Gandhi was raised at RSS and Mahasabha meetings, and Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated on 30th January 1948. The killing of Gandhi clearly showed that the communalism and communal force had reached their most aggressive phase. It was precisely this transformation of communalism of which Gandhiji's assassination assassination was a manifestation manifestation which provided a fertile climate for the creation of Pakistan. Subsection 36.2.3 The British Policy. The growth of Muslim communalists was considerably aided by the wholehearted official backing given by the British government by 1937. The policy of divide and rule really amounted amounted to keeping the Hindu-Muslim divide unbridgeable. Unbridgeable. All other divisive techniques had virtually become non-viable at that particular juncture. Juncture. Earlier, the colonial authorities had pitted the landlord and backward and scheduled castes against the national movement and tried to see the Congress into right and left wings, but without success. The elections of 1937 showed that the only weapon left in the armory of British to divide Indian nationalism was communalism. After the outbreak of the Second World War, the Muslim League was assiduously assiduously fostered fostered by Viceroy Linlithgow. Linlithgow. The Pakistan demand was used to counter the demand of the Congress that the British should promise that India would be free after the war and, as proof of their sincerity, transfer actual control of the government to Indians immediately. The British pointed out that the Hindus and Muslims must come to an agreement on how power was to be transferred before the process could begin. The League was officially recognized as representative voice of Muslims. Even though its performance in the last elections hardly substantiated this claim. Substantiated and promised that no political settlement would be made unless it was acceptable to the League. This was a blanket power of veto, which Jinnah was to use to good effect after the war has ended. The Cripps Mission, Cripps Mission, March to April 1942. In March 1942, Stafford Cripps, Stafford Cripps, a Labour Party leader with friendly links with many leaders of the Congress, headed a mission to India whose declaration intention was the earliest possible realization of self-government in India. However, the actual provisions of the offer belied this declaration by Cripps. Dominion status, dominion status. Not full independence was promised, and that too after the war, and the people of the princely states were to be represented in the proposed Constituent Assembly by nominees of the princes. It was clear that the British would retain control over defence in the new Executive Council. The Congress could hardly have accepted what was, according to the Secretary of the State, Amery, a conservative, reactionary and limited offer. But above all, the Cripps, proposals brought in Pakistan through the back door via the local option clause. Provinces were given the right to sign individual agreements with Britain about their future status should they choose to reject the new constitution that would be framed. Though the Cripps mission failed, Cripps' proposal gave a fillip to activities of the Muslim League and provided legitimacy to the Pakistan demand by accommodating in their provisions for provincial autonomy, AUTONOMY, autonomy. At a time when the demand had hardly been taken seriously by the Indians, the sympathetic 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 consideration by officialdom was a great service to the cause of Pakistan. Check your progress. 1. First question. Why did the Muslim League raise the cry of Islam in danger? Answer in 10 lines. End of the recording. Hello, this is Mahati. Subject History. Book name Indian Modern History 1867 to 1964. Unit 36. Subunit 36.3 Post-War Developments. In this section, we will give you a sequence of events from the end of the war till the making of the Pakistan, the conditions of the partition and the ultimate shape of Pakistan depended almost entirely on the developments in these 2 years. Subtopic 36.3.1 Simla Conference and Elections. At the end of World War II, at the initiative of the Viceroy Wavell, 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 the Congress leaders were released from jail in mid-June 1945 and invited to Shimla to work out an interim political agreement under which Indians would be responsible for running the country. The Congress was willing to cooperate and gave in its list of nominees, but Jinnah decided to test the power of veto given to him by the British. He insisted that the League alone had the right to nominate Muslims in the elective council. This was embarrassing for the government as this denied representation to the Muslims of the Unionist Unionist Party of Punjab, which had supported the British staunchly staunchly throughout the war. But the present and future interests were considered more important than past loyalty, and Wavell preferred to announce the breakdown of the conference rather than bypass of the League. The Jinnah's power to veto the constitutional progress has been upheld. Elections, the watershed. WATERSHED, watershed. The elections held in the winter of 1945 to 46 to the central and provincial legislative assemblies were fought by the League with a straightforward communal slogan, in quotes, a vote for the League and Pakistan vote for Islam, brackets closed. Mosques were used for election, meeting and pirs, PIRS, pirs in brackets holy men, persuaded to issue fatwas, fatwas in brackets directives that Muslims must vote for the League. The choice between Congress and the League were portrayed as a choice between Gita and Quran. It was small wonder then that the League made a clean sweep of Muslim seats. Subtopic 36.3.2 The Cabinet Mission. By early 1946, the British authorities had come to the conclusion that the graceful withdrawal from India was the best option for them. The Cabinet Mission was sent to India in March 1946 to establish a national agreement and work out a constitutional agreement for transfer of power. Now, when the British had decided to leave, it was believed that the old policy of divide and rule would no longer be suitable. British strategies in the Indian subcontinent after the independence, it can be argued, would be better served if India was united. It was believed that the united India, which was friendly with Britain, could be an active partner in the defense of Commonwealth, whereas a divided India's defense potential would be a weak conflict between India and Pakistan would frustrate the joint defense plans. The change in British attitude towards the Congress and League around this time reflects this understanding. The British Prime Minister Attlee, 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 declared on 15th March 1946 that the minority will not be allowed to place a veto on the progress of the majority. This was in sharp contrast, contrast to the Viceroy Wavell's attitude during the Shimla Conference in June-July 1945, when Jinnah had been allowed to wreck the conference by his insistence on nominating all Muslims. The cabinet mission also believed that the Pakistan would not be viable as a separate entity. Therefore, the plan that was drawn up by the mission was to safeguard the interests of the Muslim minority within the overall framework of unity of the country. 3 sections were planned which would separate meetings to work out their constitutions. The Congress provinces like Madras, Bombay, UP, Bihar, Central Provinces and Orissa would form Group A, Punjab, NWFP and Sindh would go into Group B, and Bengal and Assam would make Group C. The Common Centre would look after defence, foreign affairs and communications. A province could leave the group to which it was assigned after the first general elections, and after 10 years it could demand modification of both the group and union constitutions. Ambivalence over grouping. AMBIVALENC, ambivalence. Disagreement arose between the Congress and the League over the issue of grouping. The Congress demanded that provinces should have the option not to join a group at the very beginning rather than wait till general elections were held. The Congress raised this objection keeping in mind the Congress ruled provinces of Assam and NWFP, which had been placed in Section C and B. The League demanded the provinces be given the right to modify the Union Constitution immediately and not wait for 10 years. Thus, the basic problem was that the Cabinet Mission Plan was not clear about whether grouping was a stand even when asked to do so. This was because of the hope that their ambivalence might reconcile the irreconcilable irreconcilable position of the Congress and the League. But in effect, it only complicated matters. Soon, it was obvious that the League and the Congress were at cross purposes in their interpretation of the mission plan. Both parties saw it as a confirmation of their stand. Sardar Patel drew satisfaction from the fact that Pakistan was now out of picture and the League's power of veto had been withdrawn. The League made it clear in brackets in 6 June 1946 statement brackets closed that it accepted the plan in so far as the basis of Pakistan was implied by the clause of compulsory grouping. Nehru explained in his speech to the AICC in brackets on 7th June 1946 brackets closed that the Congress Working Committee had only decided that the Congress would participate in the Constituent Assembly. Since the Assembly was a sovereign body, SOVEREIGN, sovereign body, it would formulate the rules of procedure. The implication implications was that the rules laid down by the mission could be amended. The League, whose acceptance of the plan had in any case been qualified, quickly took advantage of Nehru's speech to withdraw its acceptance of the mission plan on 29th July 1946. Subtopic 36.3.3 Formation of Interim Government. The British government was now placed in a dilemma. Should it wait till the League came around, or should it implement the short-term aspect of the plan and set up an interim government with the Congress alone? Wavell's preference was the first option, but His Majesty's government was of the opinion that Congress cooperation was absolutely necessary for their long-term interest. Accordingly, the Congress was invited to form an interim government, which came into being on 2nd September 1946, with Jawaharlal Nehru functional as its de facto de facto head. This was a sharp departure from earlier British practice, as for the first time the British were willing to defy Jinnah's stand that no constitutional settlement be made unless it was acceptable to the League. League launches direct action. Jinnah, however, was determined to ensure that the British continue with their old policy. He warned the British Prime Minister Attlee that a surrender to the Congress by the British would compel the Muslims to shed their blood. There was no empty threat, as League had already accepted the program of direct action. The call for direct action was given in Calcutta on 16th August 1946, and the new slogan was Ladke Lenge Pakistan. We will fight and get Pakistan. Communal frenzy was provoked by Muslim communal groups, with the League's Bengal ministry headed by Suhrawardy looking Suhrawardy looking on passively, if not actively abetting it. Abetting it. Hindu communal elements retaliated, perhaps with equal brutality, and 5,000 people were killed in what is come to be known as the Great Calcutta Killings. The trouble broke out in Noakhali, Noakhali, in East Bengal in early 1946, and Noakhali sparked off widespread attacks in Muslims in Bihar in late October 1946. The following months saw riots everywhere in UP, Bombay, Punjab, and NWFP. The tide could not be stemmed. Stemmed. British referred to the conciliating to League. Conciliating, conciliating to the League. Jinnah's ability to unleash civil warrant the British authorities back to their old policy of placating, placating the Muslims. They realized that though the League was their creation, it had now assumed the shape of communal monster which could not be tamed. Wavell had kept up his effort to bring the League into the government, and now the Secretary of State, Pethick Lawrence, Pethick Lawrence, Lawrence, supported him on the grounds that civil war would become inevitable if the League stayed on. On 26 October 1946, the League joined the interim government. Interim government another arena of struggle. However, the League's entry into the interim government, interim government, did not conflict. It only opened up another arena of struggle. The League was allowed to join the interim government without forsaking the idea of Pakistan or the plan of direct action. Furthermore, it did not accept the short-term or the long-term aspects of the cabinet mission plan. League leaders including Jinnah publicly said that the interim government was merely continuation of civil war by other means. Jinnah's assessment was that the exclusive control over administration by Congress was not in League's interest, and therefore he was keen that the League share power. The interim government was seen as a foothold which would help the League to advance towards its goal of Pakistan. Conflict between Congress and League members in the interim government erupted very soon. The choice of second-rung League leaders as League nominees (except Liaquat Ali Khan, Liaquat Ali Khan clearly indicated that the League had no intention to share the Congress the responsibility for running the government. On the other hand, the intention apparently was to demonstrate the cooperation between the two was impossible. The League ministers made it a point to disagree with actions taken by their Congress colleagues. They refused to attend the parties at which Congress members would arrive at decisions before the formal meeting of the Executive Council so as to sideline Wavell. Interim government threat of breakdown. The Congress leaders had raised objection (right after the League members were sworn in) that the League could not join the interim government without accepting the cabinet mission plan. Later, when non-cooperation of the League both inside and outside of the government became clear, the Congress members demanded that the League either give up direct action or leave the government. Further, the League refused to participate in Constituent Assembly, which met on 9th December 1946. Even though the statement made by His Majesty's government on 6th December 1946 upheld the League stand on grouping. The breaking point came when the League demanded that the Constituent Assembly be dissolved because it was unrepresentative. On 5th February 1947, the Congress members of the interim government sent a letter to Wavell with the demand that the League members should be asked to resign. A crisis was imminent. IMMINENT. 36.3.4 Fixing of a time limit for British withdrawal. The situation was saved by Attlee's announcement in Parliament on 20th February 1947 that the British would withdraw from India by 30th June 1948 and that Lord Mountbatten, Mountbatten would replace Wavell as Viceroy. There was no answer to the constitutional crisis that was at hand, but it showed that the British decision about leaving India remained unchanged. The Congress responded with a gesture of cooperating to the League. Nehru appealed to Liaquat Ali Khan. The British are fading out of the picture, and the burden of this decision must rest on all of us here. It seems desirable that we should face this question squarely and not speak to each other from a distance. But Jinnah's reaction to Attlee's statement was entirely different. He was confident that now he only needed to stick firmly to his position in order to achieve his goal of Pakistan. After all, the declaration made it clear that the power would be transferred to more than one authority of the Constituent Assembly did not become a fully representative body, that is, if the Muslim majority provinces did not join it. The governor of Punjab had warned in this regard that the statement will be regarded as the prelude, prelude to the final showdown, with everyone out to, in quotes, seize as such power as they can, if necessary by force. Quotes closed. He was soon proved right. The League began a civil disobedience campaign in Punjab, which brought about the collapse of the coalition coalition ministry headed by Khizr Hayat Khan, Khizr Hayat Khan of the Unionist Party. Thus, the situation which Mountbatten found on his arrival in India was a fairly intractable, intractable one. The League was on the war path, as Punjab showed, and Jinnah was obdurate that he would accept nothing less than a sovereign Pakistan. Obdurate. The cabinet mission plan had clearly become defunct, defunct, and there was no point in persisting with it. The only way the British could maintain unity was by throwing all their weight behind it. The role of mediators between Congress and League had to be discarded. Those who opposed unity had to be put down firmly, and those who wanted unity had to be openly supported. Despite Attlee's claims years later, in quotes, we would have preferred a united India. We couldn't get it, though we tried hard. Quotes closed. The truth was the British chose to play safe and take both sides along without exercising any check or restraint, even when the situation demanded this type of assertion of authority. 36.3.5 The 3rd June Plan and its outcome. This was done by making concessions to both Congress and League. India would be divided, but in a manner that maximum unity was retained. The League's demand would be accommodated by creating Pakistan, but it would be as small as possible in order to accommodate the Congress stand on unity. Since Congress was making the bigger concession, that is, it was giving up its ideal of a united India, all its other stands were to be upheld by the British. For example, Mountbatten supported the Congress stand that the princely states must not be given the option of independence. Mountbatten realized that was vital to retain the goodwill of the Congress if he hoped to persuade India to remain the Commonwealth. Dominion, Dominion status offered a chance of keeping India in Commonwealth, even if it's for a while, and hence 3rd June Plan declared that power would be handed by 15th August 1947 on the basis of Dominion status to India and Pakistan. The Congress was willing to accept the Congress was willing to accept Dominion status because it was the only way of assuming complete power immediately and taking the communally explosive situation in hand. British officials were half-headed about preventing the communal situation from deteriorating further. Sardar Patel summed up the situation in a statement to the Viceroy, in brackets, "You won't govern yourself and you won't let us govern." Quotes closed. The British had abdicated, TED, abdicated responsibility and advancing of the date for withdrawal to 15th August 1947 made this more apparent. The speed with which country was partitioned was disastrous from the Indian point of view. Although it suited the British had enabled them to forsake responsibility for worsening communal situation. Both transfer of power and division of the country, equally complicated process, were hurried through in 72 days from 3rd June to 15th August 1947. Some senior British officials like Commander-in-Chief and Punjab Governor were of opinion that the minimum period of few years was necessary to effort a peaceful division. Jinnah complicated matters further by refusing to let Mountbatten be a common Governor-General and Pakistan of India and Pakistan. There was no institutional structure to which problems arising from division could be referred, and even the joint defense machinery broke down in December 1947 as a fallout of the hostilities HOSTILITIES in Kashmir. Massacres that accompanied partition. The speed with which the division was effected and delay in announcing the awards of the Boundary Commission aggravated the tragedy of partition. They were Mountbatten's decision. Mountbatten delayed the announcement of Boundary Commission award (even though it was ready by 12th August 1947) to disown responsibilities for further complications. This created confusion for ordinary citizens as well as the officials. People living in villages between Lahore and Amritsar stayed on in their homes in the belief that they were on the right side of the border. Migrations necessarily became a frenzied frenzied affair, often culminating culminating in massacres. MASSACRES. The officials were busy arranging their own transfers rather than using their authority to maintain law and order. This was conceded by none other than Lockhart, LACKHART, who was Commander-in-Chief of Indian Army from 15th August to 3rd December 1947. Had officials in every grade in civil services and all the personnel of the armed services been in position in their respective new countries before Independence Day, it seems that they would have been a better chance of preventing widespread disorder. Check your progress too. First question. Read the following statement and mark right or wrong. First, Muslim League contested in the elections on the basis of socio-economic program. 2. The interim government could not work because the Congress workers were unwilling to cooperate. 3. Jinnah wanted Mountbatten to become the common Governor-General of India and Pakistan. Question number 2. What were the basic merits and flaws in the Cabinet Mission Plan? Write in 5 lines. Hello, my name is Mahati. Subject History. Book name Indian Modern History 1867 to 1964. Unit 36. Subunit 36.4 Congress and Partition. Why did the Congress accept partition? It was one thing for the League to demand Pakistan and the British to concede concede it because it was in harmony with the politics they had pursued pursued in the past. But why did the Congress, which had fought for unity for long years, give up its ideal of a united India? One view is that Congress leaders succumbed 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 to temptation of power and struck a deal with the British by which they got quick power while the whole nation paid the price of partition. This view is both simplistic and incorrect. What was involved was not the personal failings of the top leader, but a basic failure of an entire organization. The Congress acceptance of partition was the consequence of its failure over the years to bring Muslim masses into the nationalist mainstream since 1937 1937 to stem the advancing tide of Muslim communalism. By 1946, it was clear to the Congress leaders that the Muslims were behind the League as it had won 80% Muslim seats in the elections. However, the point of no return was reached a year later when the battle for Pakistan was no longer confined to the ballot box but came to be fought on streets. Communal riots engulfed engulfed the country, and the Congress leaders concluded that the partition was a lesser evil than a civil war. The breakdown of the interim government only confirmed the inevitability inevitability of Pakistan. Nehru remarked that the interim government was an arena of struggle, and Sardar Patel, in his speech at the AICC meeting on 14th June 1947, drew attention to the fact that Pakistan was actually functioning not only in Punjab and Bengal but also in the interim government. Moreover, the interim government had no power to intervene in the provinces (even when the League ministry in Bengal was guilty not only of inaction but complicity complicity in the riots in Calcutta and Noakhali. Nehru realized that there was no point in holding office when, in quotes, murder stalks the streets and most amazing cruelties are indulged in by both the individuals and the mobs. Quotes closed. Immediate transfer of power would at least bring about a government that would have the power to fulfill its responsibilities. Another consideration in accepting partition was that it firmly ruled out the spectre of the balkanization of the country. The Congress had the support of the Viceroy and behind him His Majesty's government in refusing the option of independence to the princely states. Though persuasion persuasion of or force, they were made to join either the Union of India or Pakistan. Gandhi and partition. It is common knowledge that Gandhi was so distressed when the partition became an imminent reality that he no longer wished to live for 125 years, as he had stated earlier. One popular interpretation, interpretation, is that Gandhi's advice was ignored by his disciples Nehru and Patel, who wanted power at any cost, and though he felt this betrayal acutely, he did not wish to condemn them publicly because they had been his faithful followers. Gandhi's own statements, however, suggest that the main reason for his helplessness lay in the communalization of the masses. The Muslims began distrusting the Hindus, and then the Hindu and Sikhs also convinced that the mutual coexistence was impossible. It was Hindus and Sikhs' desire for partition that made him a mass leader without any masses behind him in his struggle for unity. The Muslims had already declared him to be their enemy. When different segments of people wanted partition, what could be or the Congress do but to accept it? At his daily prayer meeting on 4th June 1947, Gandhi said, "The demand had been granted because you asked for it. The Congress never asked for it, but the Congress can feel the pulse of the people. It realized that the Khalsa as also the Hindus desired it." Socialists and Gandhians appealed to Gandhi to launch a struggle for unity, bypassing the Congress leaders. Gandhi pointed out that the problem was not that he was unwilling to go ahead with the Congress leaders. After all, few had agreed with his assessment in 1942 that the time was right for a struggle of the Quit India type, and yet he had defied their counsels and he had been proved right. The crucial lacuna, lacuna, in 1947 was that there were no forces of good upon which he could build a program. He confessed, "Today I see no sign of such a healthy feeling, and therefore I shall have to wait until the time comes." The time never came. The political developments were moving at too fast a pace. Partitions were announced on 3rd June and implemented on 15th August 1947. Gandhi's advice to congressmen conveyed in his speech to the AICC meeting on 14th June 1947 was to accept partition as an unavoidable necessity for the present, but to accept it in their hearts and fight to reverse it later when passion would subside. Subunit 36.5 Congress's handling of the communal problems. It is often argued that the partition could have been avoided if the Congress had been willing to conciliate, conciliate Jinnah, not only before he came up with the demand for a separate state in 1940, but also in 1942 at the time of the Cripps Mission, or even in 1946 when the Cabinet Mission Plan was put forward. Maulana Azad, in his autobiography, India Wins Freedom, had supported this position. This view ignores the fact that Jinnah laid down the impossible condition that he was willing to negotiate with the Congress only if it declared itself a Hindu body and accepted the Muslim League as the sole representative of the Muslims. Had the Congress accepted this demand, it would have give up its secular character. This would not only have meant betrayal of the nationalist Muslims who had resolutely resolutely stood behind the Congress at great personal cost, but betrayal of the Indian people and their future. The logical culmination, culmination of accepting Jinnah's demand would have been the creation of a Hindu fascist state from a Hindu body to a Hindu state being a logical next step. In Rajendra Prasad's words, the Congress, in quotes, would be denying its own past, falsifying its history, and betraying its future. Quotes closed. 36.5.1 Pitfalls of Conciliation. In fact, though Congress refused to negotiate with Jinnah on his terms, it made unilateral concessions to Muslim demands despite Jinnah's intransigence. Intransigence. The Congress accepted the autonomy of the Muslim majority provinces during the negotiations with the Cripps mission in 1942. In his talks with Jinnah in 1944, Gandhi recognized that the Muslim majority provinces would have the right to self-determination. When the cabinet mission plan was proposed that the Muslim majority provinces, Group B and C would set up a separate constituent assembly if they wished. The Congress did not oppose this. Congress opposed compulsory grouping in brackets because it would force NWFP and Assam into groups they may not wish to join, brackets closed. But by the end of 1946, Nehru declared that his party would accept the interpretation of the federal court on whether grouping was compulsory or optional. Accordingly, when the British cabinet clarified in its 6 December 1946 statement that grouping would be compulsory, the Congress quietly accepted the new interpretation. As we have pointed out earlier, Nehru appealed to Liaquat Ali Khan for cooperation when His Majesty's government announced a time limit for the withdrawal on 20th February 1947. So, when the Congress finally accepted the 3rd June plan and partition, this was only the final act of surrender to the League's demand. It was culmination of a process and reconcilement to the harsh realities and situation created by the League's intransigent championing of the demand of a sovereign Muslim majority issue. Thus, the policy of concessions intend to reassure Muslims that their interests would be protected ended up as a surrender to extreme communal demands. For example, the Congress conceded the right of succession in the hope that Muslims would not exercise it but rather use it to shed their fears. It was wishful thinking, as by 1940s, Muslim communalism was no longer based on the assiduous assiduous fanning of minority fears, but on an assertive Muslim nation, determined as a separate sovereign state. Consequently, every time Congress made a concession, Jinnah pegged his demand a notch higher. Seeing that the Congress was yielding far from the ground from under the communalistic feet, every round of concession strengthened their foothold as more and more Muslims joined their ranks, impressed by their success among the Muslim communalism. Hindu communalism also registered rapid growth as the Hindu communalists projected themselves as the only champions of the Hindus' interest, which they charged the Congress was betraying in the hope of winning over Muslims. 36.5.2 The basic failure. This lack of understanding of the logical communalism in 1940s was only symptomatic of the general feature of the Congress in contending with communalism. Though the Congress was committed to secularism and though Gandhi staked his life for Hindu-Muslim unity, the Congress was not able to formulate a long-term strategy to fight communalism in its different forms at the level of both politics and ideology. The Congress leaders naively believed that reassurances, generous concessions, and willingness to reach a compromise would solve the communal problem. As Professor Bipin Chandra has said, in quotes, the fact is that communalism is basically an ideology which could not have been and cannot be appeared. It had to be confronted and opposed. The failure to do so was the real weakness of the Congress and the national movement. In brackets, India's struggle for independence, quotes closed. Check your process. Question 1. Read the following statements and mark right or wrong. First, Congress accepted partition because the Congress leaders succumbed to the temptation of power. 2. British government accepted partition because it was keen in keeping its it was in keeping with its policies pursued in its past. Third, the Congress policies of concessions and conciliations contributed in making of Pakistan. Four, the real failure of Congress lay in not being able to evolve a long-term strategy to find communalism. Question number 2. Why did Gandhi feel so helpless regarding the partition of India? Write in 5 lines. Hello, this is Mahati. Subject History. Book name Modern History 1867 to 1964. Unit 36. Subunit. Let's sum it up. The partition of India was primarily the result of the persistent efforts of the Muslim League from 1940 onwards to obtain a separate homeland for the Muslims. Through an astute combination of constitutional methods and direct actions, the League under Jinnah's stewardship, stewardship, consolidated its position and forced the political situation into a deadlock, from which the partition was the only escape. But Pakistan could not have been created without the help given by the British. British authorities used the communal card in their moves to counter the national movement, which was growing from strength to strength. They gave credibility to the Pakistan demand, recognized the League as the sole representative of Muslim, and gave the League the power to veto progress in political statements. Even when their own interests inclined them towards leaving behind a united India, they proved incapable of standing up to Jinnah and tamely surrendered to the blackmail of direct action. Official inaction in checking the rapidly deteriorating communal situation reached a point from which the partition appeared preferable to civil war. The Congress, for its part, failed to prevent the partition despite its long-standing commitment to a united India. Its weakness lay on 2 fronts. It failed to draw the Muslim masses into the national movement and was not able to evolve a strategy to successfully fight communalism. Subunit 36.7. Key words. Divide and rule. A term which refers to the British policy of creating divisions in the Indian society so as to perpetuate their rule in India. Local option clause. A clause in the Cripps proposal which recognized the right of any part of the Indian Dominion to refuse to join it. This clause provided the much needed legitimacy to the demand for Pakistan. End of Unit 36.